Okay, diving into Robert Greene's work,
Yeah.
especially the 48 Laws of Power and Mastery. I feel like we're about to unlock some hidden truth about
Okay.
human nature and how to navigate the world.
Yeah, there's a certain mystique around those titles, isn't there?
Yeah.
Greene's work often provokes strong reactions.
Right.
Some see it as a cynical guide to manipulation, while others view it as a profound exploration of self-awareness and strategic thinking.
Okay, so what is he trying to teach us? What's the core message? What do you think?
I think at its heart, Greene's work is about understanding reality as it is, not as we wish it were.
Right.
So he strips away those illusions that we often hold about ourselves and others, encourages us to see the world through a more objective lens,
Oh.
wants us to become aware of the hidden dynamics at play in every interaction,
Yeah.
the subtle power struggles that shape our relationships and our destinies.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see where the dark side comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging those less glamorous aspects of human nature. Things we often try to sweep under the rug.
Exactly. Greene argues that we all have these shadow sides, insecurities, envy, aggression that we often try to suppress or deny, but by confronting them, by understanding their roots and their power, we can actually channel that energy productively. It's not about becoming ruthless
Right.
or manipulative, but rather about becoming more conscious
Right.
and strategic in our choices.
So instead of pretending like these darker impulses don't exist,
Right.
we should try to understand and even harness them. That's a bold approach for sure. But what led him to this particular way of thinking? What, like, his background is not your typical self-help guru.
Not at all.
Right.
In fact, his unconventional path is likely what makes his insights so unique.
Okay.
Before becoming a best-selling author, Greene had a fascinatingly diverse career.
Okay.
Construction worker, detective agency employee, a tour guide. He even taught English in Spain.
Wow. That's a far cry from, book deals and the bestseller list.
It is.
I can see how all those experiences, rubbing shoulders with all walks of life, would give you a different perspective on human nature.
Absolutely. Each of those jobs exposed him to different power structures, social dynamics, and the subtle ways people use strategy, whether consciously or not, to get what they want.
It's like his own life was a masterclass in the 48 Laws of Power before he ever sat down to write the book.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to understand this context
Oh.
because it helps us see that Greene's work isn't just theoretical.
Uh-huh.
It's born out of real-world experience, observation, and a deep understanding of how humans actually behave.
So not just abstract principles, but rather about practical tools for navigating the complexities of human relationships
Exactly.
and achieving our goals.
And this is where his emphasis on self-awareness comes in.
Okay.
He argues that true mastery, whether in our personal or professional lives, begins with understanding ourselves. And that includes understanding our shadow sides, the parts of ourselves that we might not like to admit exist.
So how do we even begin to confront those darker impulses? It's not exactly something we're taught to do in school or even in most self-help books.
Well, Greene himself had a powerful, albeit unwanted, teacher in this regard.
Okay.
A stroke that he suffered in 2018.
Oh, wow.
It left him with limited mobility. And in interviews, he's incredibly candid about the frustrations and challenges he faces daily.
Yeah. It's one thing to talk about acknowledging our weaknesses in theory, but to actually face those limitations so viscerally, how did that experience shape his thinking?
He talks about how the stroke forced him to confront his own mortality, his vulnerability, and the limitations of his physical body, but it also forced him to reevaluate his priorities, to appreciate the simple things in life, and to find new sources of strength and resilience.
It's almost like he went through a real-life death ground experience,
Yes.
a concept he discusses in his work.
He talks about seeking out those challenges that push us beyond our comfort zones, that force us to confront our fears and to adapt.
Right.
It's not about seeking out suffering, but rather about recognizing that true growth often happens when we're pushed to our limits.
Okay. And this idea of embracing discomfort reminds me of his emphasis on the power of no.
Yes.
He talked about how a strong sense of purpose allows us to say no to distractions and opportunities that don't align with our goals.
It's a form of strategic self-discipline. He even cautions against the dangers of what he calls frenemies.
Frenemies, okay.
People who might appear supportive, but actually undermine our goals,
Right.
or drain our energy. Maintaining clear boundaries, both in our personal and professional lives, is essential for achieving true mastery.
So being selective with our time, our energy, our relationships, and focusing on what truly matters.
Absolutely.
It sounds like he's advocating for a very intentional approach to life,
He is.
where we're constantly evaluating our choices and making sure they align with our long-term vision.
Absolutely. And that's where his emphasis on understanding power dynamics comes into play.
Okay.
He wants us to become more aware of the subtle ways power operates in every interaction. Not so that we can manipulate others, but so that we can make more informed choices and protect our own interests.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's about becoming more conscious,
Yeah.
more strategic, ultimately more empowered in navigating the world. But how do we actually develop this kind of awareness? It sounds like a pretty tall order.
Yeah, it feels like we're talking about developing a whole new way of seeing the world. Almost like putting on a pair of X-ray glasses that allow us to see the underlying power dynamics and motivations in every interaction.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And Greene provides us with some fascinating tools to develop that kind of perception. He's a big believer in the power of observation, both of ourselves and others.
So it's about being more attuned to those subtle cues, the things we might normally miss if we're not paying attention. Exactly. He talks about the importance of reading body language, not just listening to what people say, but also noticing how they say it, their posture, their gestures, even micro expressions that flicker across their face.
It's almost like becoming a detective of human behavior.
Mhm.
I gotta admit, though, that level of scrutiny can feel a bit intense. Is it about, constantly analyzing everyone we encounter?
It's not about becoming paranoid or suspicious, but rather about developing a heightened awareness of the signals that people are sending, whether consciously or unconsciously. And this awareness isn't just about understanding others, it's about understanding ourselves as well.
Oh, okay. So how does that work? How does paying attention to our own body language
Yeah.
help us master our dark side?
It's about becoming aware of our own internal states, the emotions and impulses that might be driving our behavior.
Okay.
For example, notice how your body reacts when you feel threatened or insecure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you tense up? Avoid eye contact? Become overly defensive?
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. It's like those physical reactions are giving us clues about what's happening beneath the surface.
Exactly. And by becoming aware of those patterns, we can start to interrupt them. We can choose to respond differently, to act from a place of conscious choice rather than unconscious reaction.
So it sounds like we're talking about developing a whole new level of self-control, which, let's be honest, can be pretty challenging. Are there any practical tips Greene offers to help us with this process?
One of his key pieces of advice is to cultivate a sense of detachment, to step back from the immediacy of our emotions and observe them as if from a distance.
Okay.
He even recommends practicing a form of mental rehearsal,
Okay.
where we imagine ourselves in challenging situations and how we would ideally respond.
It's like we're creating a mental script for ourselves, one where we're more in control, more strategic, and less reactive to whatever life throws our way.
Exactly. And this ability to detach and observe is closely tied to another concept he explores, the idea of the sublime.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. The sublime, it sounds almost mystical. What does that have to do with mastering our dark side?
Greene describes the sublime as a feeling of transcendence, a sense of awe and wonder that we experience when we encounter something vast and powerful, like a breathtaking view of nature or a profound work of art. He believes these experiences are essential for our well-being and can be accessed through various means.
So it's about cultivating those moments that lift us out of the mundane, those experiences that expand our perspective and remind us of something larger than ourselves.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that Greene connects this pursuit of the sublime to the process of mastering our dark side.
Okay. How so?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time picturing how those two things relate.
Yeah. Well, he argues that by accessing the sublime, by cultivating a sense of awe and wonder, we tap into a source of energy and inspiration that can help us overcome our limitations, our fears, and even those darker impulses that might hold us back.
It's like those experiences give us a taste of something beyond our ego-driven desires, something that transcends the pettiness and anxieties that often fuel our negative behaviors.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that this isn't about escaping reality or denying our dark side. It's about using those moments of transcendence as fuel for our personal growth, for our creative pursuits, and for living a more meaningful and fulfilling life.
So we're using the power of beauty and wonder to actually fuel our journey of self-mastery. That's a beautiful concept.
It is, and it connects to another important point that Greene makes, Mastery isn't a destination. It's an ongoing process.
Right.
He encourages us to become lifelong learners, constantly seeking new knowledge, refining our skills, and challenging ourselves to grow.
And he doesn't shy away from the fact that this journey can be tough.
No.
He's very realistic about the obstacles we're likely to face, both internal and external.
Right. And this is where his insights about power dynamics become so crucial.
Yeah.
He wants us to be aware of the forces at play in our lives, the subtle ways we might be influenced or even manipulated by others, not to make us paranoid, but to empower us to make more conscious choices.
It's about recognizing that life in many ways is a game. And to play it well, we need to understand the rules, the strategies, the potential pitfalls.
Exactly. And this is where mastering our dark side becomes essential. It's not about denying those less glamorous aspects of ourselves, but rather about understanding them, integrating them, and even harnessing them for good.
So instead of seeing our shadow sides as weaknesses, we can actually learn to leverage them as strengths.
Yes. Think about it. Our envy can fuel our ambition. Our anger can motivate us to fight for what's right. Even our insecurity can push us to strive for excellence. It's all about how we channel that energy.
It's a powerful reminder that we are complex beings, capable of both great and terrible things. And the key is to become conscious of those complexities, to make choices that align with our highest values, and to use our understanding of human nature, both the light and the shadow, to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
And in that process, it's crucial to remember that we are not alone.
Right.
Greene highlights the importance of mentors, of learning from those who have walked the path before us. He even credits his own book, Mastery, for inspiring Andrew Huberman to transition from academia to podcasting.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's a beautiful example of how knowledge and shared experiences can have a ripple effect.
It's like we're all part of a larger conversation,
Okay.
a collective journey of self-discovery and mastery, and each of us has something unique to contribute.
Precisely. And that brings us to a question Greene leaves us with,
Okay.
a challenge to ponder as you continue your own deep dive into his work. He argues that stupidity, not malice, is often the root of bad strategy and poor decision-making.
That's a thought-provoking statement. It almost feels like a call for compassion.
It is. It invites us to see beyond the surface, to understand that people often act from a place of ignorance, fear, or limited perspective. It's a reminder that we're all works in progress, each of us navigating the complexities of life with the best tools we have.
So perhaps the key to mastering our own dark side lies in recognizing that those same shadow elements exist in others, and that by extending a bit more understanding and grace, we can create a more harmonious and productive world.
Beautifully said. And ultimately, that's the essence of what Robert Greene is trying to teach us through his work. It's about becoming more conscious, more strategic, more self-aware, and yes, even more compassionate in how we navigate the world.
It's about understanding the game of life, not to manipulate or exploit others, but to play it with skill, integrity, and a deep understanding of the human heart, both its light and its shadow.
It's a journey that requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to confront those aspects of ourselves that we might prefer to keep hidden.
But as Greene reminds us, it's a journey that's worth taking. The rewards are immense, both for ourselves and for the world around us.
So to you listening, we encourage you to embrace the challenge. Dive deep into your own nature, explore those hidden corners, and discover the power that lies within. You might be surprised by what you find.
And remember, mastery isn't about perfection. It's about progress. So be kind to yourself, be curious, and keep striving to become the most authentic, the most powerful, and the most fulfilled version of yourself.